Well, lately we've seen a lot of mainstream media outlets talking about the Disney parks and not in a very glowing manner. We've had articles from Variety, the New York Times, and more criticizing recent changes and decisions that are being made involving the Disney parks. Well, we have another article here from Forbes written by Caroline Reed that says how Disney's theme parks cast a dark spell on its fortunes. So I figured let's read through this and give some thoughts on it. So hi, I'm Jared to Capture the Magic. And again, we have an article from Forbes here, how Disney's theme parks cast a dark spell on its fortunes. Almost exactly 1 year ago, Disney's chief executive Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro, chairman of its theme parks division, made a blockbuster announcement. They revealed that over the next decade, Disney's investment in its parks, experiences, and products segment would nearly double to roughly $60 billion. It seemed sure to give a sparkle to the media giant's declining stock price. Over the course of the previous 2.5 years, Disney had lost a staggering 59.4% of its value, partly due to the disastrous timing of heavy investment in its Disney Plus streaming platform. Disney Plus initially seemed like a godsend. It launched in late 2019, only a matter of months before consumers all over the world had to lock down in their homes and work remotely due to the onset of COVID-19. They were soon craving new television content, and Disney Plus hit that spot. Subscriber numbers surged, hitting 60 million after 8 months and 100 million after 16 months. It was more than Disney initially forecast to have within 5 years, and stockholders couldn't get enough of it. Disney's stock price soared in line with this and hit an all-time high of $201.91 in March of 2021. In a bid to capitalize on the interest from investors and dethrone Netflix as the most popular streaming platform, Disney commissioned costly content which should be shown exclusively on Disney Plus. Bob Chapek, Disney's boss at the time, signed off on this spending splurge, even though Disney Plus hadn't covered its startup cost and had yet to turn a profit. It still hasn't even come close to turning a profit or recouping its cost. So technically, last quarter they made a profit on Disney Plus, but overall, it depends on where you're looking at information. Anywhere from 10 to 11 billion dollars in debt, and it was still in the hole with Disney Plus, if not more. It depends on how long the timeline is, because Disney had been developing Disney Plus and that platform for a very long time, including buying up other smaller companies in terms of like the things that they use to stream it, the video players and things like that. Disney's strong back catalog alone would have been enough to tempt many subscribers to sign up, and as we reported, if it had only put this on its platform, it wouldn't have incurred any significant additional cost. It's a very good point. Instead, it spent billions on exclusive streaming content, causing its direct-to-consumer segment to generate billions of dollars in operating losses. They hit a record $1.5 billion in the fourth quarter of 2022 when subscriber numbers peaked at 164.2 million. Then then came a disturbance in the force. Just when much of the new content began to hit screens, lockdowns began to get lifted. It led workers to returning to the office, giving them less time to watch streaming shows. Disney Plus subscriber numbers suddenly started to decline before Disney had managed to overtake Netflix. It left Disney counting the cost, with the total operating losses of its DTC division currently standing at $11.4 billion since the platform was launched. And again, there are more costs that I don't think they're putting onto this, so it's very likely over that $11.4 billion in terms of the overall cost, like developing and setting up Disney Plus. The rating gave investors the jitters, and Disney's stock began to steadily decline in value. By the time that record DTC losses were announced on November 8th, 2022, Disney's share price had fallen 50.5% off its peak close at $99.90, and Chapek paid the ultimate price. Just 12 days after the announcement, he was unceremoniously dumped by Disney, and his predecessor, Iger, replaced him on a contract which runs until the end of 2026. It says he hasn't had a magic touch. A lot of people didn't want to talk about that, but when Chapek was fired, that stock had been taking that hit, and I think it was a lot of them trying to jumpstart that stock price. It's had a hard time getting over $100. It's still not over $100 today. And the thing that people don't even remember is whenever Disney Plus was real, I mean, it was beating expectations. You know, Chapek at the time, they sort of wanted to realign the company to be seen as a tech company, because during COVID, the tech companies all were doing very well in the stock wise. Meanwhile, the Disney parks had to be closed down, and obviously travel was impacted. So they much more wanted to be seen as this tech-like company with Disney Plus and really restructure the company as a whole. And then it ended up backfiring because all the losses it incurred. So what they initially wanted, they didn't end up wanting as the parks kind of came back up, but Disney Plus continued to pull things down. That was kind of the issue they ran into. Iger started by making sweeping management changes and slashing streaming spend as part of a $7.5 billion cost-cutting plan. Despite this, Disney's stock price hasn't returned to its glory days. Over the past 2 years since Iger returned to the helm, it has largely stayed under $100, and the highest price it hit was $122.82, which is 39% off of its March 2021 record when Chapek was in charge. Iger brought streaming costs under control, so the dwindling stock price suggested that this was far from the company's only problem. And remember too, they got it up to $122 whenever there was a proxy battle going on, and they were announcing a lot of things like, they're saying they bought a stake in Epic Games, and they were kind of come up with all this news to really get people excited because they were trying to fend off Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo from getting 2 board seats. And then ever since that incident happened, the stock price has taken a steady dive since then. So the peak of that was them fighting off Peltz in terms of a hostile board, a board seat takeover. It was a lot of the motivation for that. The last thing that appeared to be the cause was Disney's experiences division. Its performance appeared to be a fairy tale compared to Disney's DTC division. When lockdown ended, consumers had tremendous pent-up demand to travel and were flush with furlough cash so they could pay a premium in order to visit theme parks. Disney took advantage of this and increased ticket prices while scrapping previously free things at its flagship Walt Disney World theme park complex in Orlando, Florida. Free buses from the airport to its on-site hotels came to an end, along with contactless room keys, which came in the form of wristbands. I mean, they already had those before that, but taking away Magical Express, I still contend, is a huge mistake they made. However, perhaps the most transformative change across all of Disney's theme parks has been scrapping the queue-cutting passes, which were previously a complimentary privilege with each entrance ticket. They now come at a cost, and according to a recent data hack reported by the Wall Street Journal, they generated more than $724 million in pre-tax revenue between October 2021 and June 2024 at Walt Disney World. The price rises combined with the cost cuts was a magic formula as it increased both revenue and profit, which compensated for the colossal streaming losses. In turn, Disney's Experiences division accounted for just over a third of its $88.9 billion revenue and more than 2/3 of its $12.9 billion operating income in 2023. By then, Disney stock was well under $100, so Iger and DeMauro got out their magic wands in a bid to boost its price. On September 19th last year, they announced a $60 billion investment in Disney's Experiences division with great fanfare. We have an ambitious growth story that is supported by a proven track record and a bold vision for the future of our parks, business boasted DeMauro. It failed to enchant investors. On the same day that Disney announced the investment, Disney stock crashed by 2.35% to close at $81.94. And it didn't stop there. Just 15 days later, it fell again, closing under $80 at $79 at its lowest price in a decade. This wasn't an isolated occurrence, though. At the time, Disney was locked in a battle with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, which began the previous year when it opposed the introduction of a new law in the state which bans early grade classroom lessons on sexual orientation and gender identity. In retaliation, DeSantis seized control of the special taxing district, which allowed the mouse to self-govern Walt Disney World. This triggered claims and counterclaims from Disney at a state and federal level, but after 2 years of wrangling, it finally agreed to put its differences with DeSantis aside. On June 5th this year, the DeSantis-controlled district gave initial approval to a proposed $17 billion 15-year development plan for Walt Disney World, opening the door for the construction of a potential 5th theme park, which I don't think is going to come anytime soon, but it is potentially there. It wasn't music to investors' ears, and Disney's stock price plummeted 1.46% to close at $101.50 on the day that approval was given. The development plan needed a final vote from the district to take effect, and it got this on June 12th. Disney teased this again in its August 7th presentation for investors, but the stock price continued to go down another 2.3% at $85.96 at the end of the day. 4 days later, Disney announced new attractions for all its theme parks around the world, including new lands in Orlando themed to its villains, Indiana Jones, and the computer animated movie Cars. When Disney shares opened the following morning on August 12th, they fell 0.4% on the previous price to $85.86. Indeed, the investor antipathy ran so deep that when Disney announced in its second quarter earnings release on May 7th this year that the entertainment division of Disney Plus had made its first profit, even that didn't boost its stock price, which fell by 1.7%. Ditto for Disney's announcement on July 24th that Inside Out 2 had become the highest grossing animated movie of all time with total takings of $1.7 billion. Disney's stock price dropped yet again at almost 0.5% during the day to close at $89.80. With its DTC business finally turning a profit and record breakers being released in theaters, the performance of Disney's Experiences division came under the spotlight. It soon became clear what was actually casting a dark spell on the company's stock price. The first indication of this came during Disney's second quarter 2024 earnings call when Chief Financial Officer Hugh Johnston warned of a softening in theme park attendance due to a global moderation from peak post-COVID travel. In short, the furlough money has long since been spent, and the travelers who wanted to visit theme parks have now done so. That's just the start of the cost of the tickets have become so high that it's off-putting new visitors. Yes. A recent report by CNBC revealed that according to Wolf Research, the price of a one-day ticket to Walt Disney World has risen 56% to $154 over the past decade, outpacing the U.S. inflation rate by 24 percentage points. It has had an impact, as CNBC added, that a 2023 survey by price comparison website LendingTree found that 60% of people who have never been to a Disney park said the cost was the main reason. Not to mention food as well has more than doubled the cost of inflation at Disney parks. So not only the tickets more expensive, the price of food has more than doubled inflation and is outpacing even tickets on that level. Worryingly, the survey also concluded that the average amount of debt the Americans get to visit Disney parks comes to about $1,690, and 41% of them regretted taking it out. It has led to furious fans slamming Disney on social media. In March, longtime Disney fan Jake Williams and his partner did just that when they explained that Disney World charged them $886 for one day at the Magic Kingdom, as well as a night at the mid-tier Port Orleans Hotel and meals in average restaurants. Given these high prices, it's a little wonder, Johnston said that in May, that relative to post-COVID highs, things are tending to normalize after crunching the numbers. Brandon Nispel of KeyBank Capital Markets added that Disney's domestic park business will be pressured for the rest of 2024, and it was no exaggeration. And this is even before Epic Universe opens. I just want to add, like, Universal has been much more of a competition for Disney, which is one of the reasons as to why, they're making a lot of changes in the parks. But all this is happening and being talked about even before their biggest competitors' biggest brand new theme park opens next year. Not so long ago, Disney's executives liked to boast that its Experiences division had delivered record profit and revenue for multiple quarters, but now those days are gone. Its latest results show that in the third quarter to June 29th, the company generated $4.3 billion of operating profit on $23.2 billion of revenue, which was up 4% on the same period of the previous year. It was a respectable result, but a deeper dive into the data revealed a worrying trend for Disney's Experiences division. Higher guest spending at Disney domestic parks and cruise lines, as well as increased spending per room, drove up Experiences revenue by 2% to $8.4 billion. However, it is a sharp decline on the 13% increase in the revenue of the equivalent segment over the same period in 2023. Worse still, the operating profit of the Experiences division declined by 3% to $2.2 billion in the third quarter. It was driven by cost climbing at Disney's domestic parks, as well as the lack of attendance growth. It is set to stay in this rut for some time. Disney's third quarter earnings statement revealed that the demand moderation we saw in our domestic business in quarter three could impact the next few quarters. While we are actively monitoring the attendance and guest spending and aggressively managing our cost base, we expect quarter four Experiences segment operating income to decline by mid-single digits versus the prior year. And this is why they're continuing to have a lot of discounts running until Christmas, which is something you never used to see. So they're anticipating it to drop even more toward the end of the quarter of this year. And again, all of this is before Epic Universe opens next year. Ideally, we're looking at either early or summer of next year. During the results announcement, Johnson gave insight into the reasons for the decline at Disney's domestic parks, as he explained that the lower income consumer is feeling a little bit of stress. The high income consumer is traveling internationally a bit more. I think you're just going to see more of a continuation of those trends in terms of the top line, he added. We saw attendance flat in the quarter with a flattish revenue number, forecast for the fourth quarter, and a slowdown expected for a few quarters. So basically what they're saying is people can't afford, the people that used to come here all the time that essentially built Disney World, which was the middle class, can't afford it anymore. And the ultra wealthy, which we chased after, which is what we were pricing all our stuff toward because they have more money, they also have more options. So maybe they went once or twice to the parks, didn't have the best of time, weren't met with the best, in terms of customer service, all these other things that Disney used to do really, really well. Now they're not doing as well. A lot of the richer people are just saying, why would we go back to Disney when we can go to, Europe, or we can go to France. We can go to a lot of these different places for many times even cheaper to experience actual history and other things. So Disney essentially has priced out the middle class, and they don't offer enough to the wealthy class to keep them coming back. It's kind of where the pickle they're in right now. The malaise and disenchantment from fans is a black mark on Tomorrow's resume. Famous for his sparkling, toothy grin, he is a regular visitor to the parks and often stops for selfies, and guests and staff who are known as cast members due to the role they play in a themed environment. DeMauro has 154,000 followers on Instagram, where he posts pictures of himself inside the parks riding roller coasters, brandishing lightsabers, and eating soft serve. Opening new parks and attractions adds to his accolades, but the question investors may wonder is whether they are necessary. Investing $60 billion in experiences when its outlook is so uncertain seems like a tremendous gamble. The fattest margins in theme parks are to be found on the high-priced food, beverage, and merchandise. The higher the attendance, the higher the spending on them. As we have reported, the real magic formula is getting more guests through the turnstiles without spending vast sums on building new attractions from scratch. Updating attractions rather than building new ones is much more cost effective. However, waiving the fees for queue cutting would be an even cheaper way to start. Although it would remove a lucrative revenue stream, it would also boost their visitor numbers and thereby merchandise, food, and beverage sales. In turn, this would increase profits, though not as much as the queue cutting passes do, as they come with no cost. However, if their price puts off too many guests from visiting the parks, then the overall level of profit may not be as high as it could be. It is a very, very tricky balancing act between rising prices and balancing a good, healthy, robust demand, said Bloomberg Intelligence senior media analyst Getha. Okay, I'm glad they brought that up. I have been saying this for a long time in that now I don't believe Disney is going to stop or get rid of what was Genie Plus, now Lightning Lane, multi-pass, single pass, all that stuff like that, because as it reported in the leaks that came out, was they've made almost $1 billion since they've implemented this system. They're not going to just turn that off because I'm sure they would take a price hit on the stock on many ways, but it's a revenue stream that they can now monetize the rights to. They like that. Now, I've made the argument that if you went back to free fast passes and you also include the Magical Express, that people generally are going to spend what they plan on spending on their vacation. So if you're charging $30 a day for Genie Plus, more than likely that just means that they're going to cut back on the amount of food or merchandise and drinks and things that they buy. Ultimately, they're going to try and spend as much money as they initially planned. Therefore, if you made Fast Passes and Magical Express free, people would spend more money in the parks. They would buy more food. They'd buy more merchandise. They wouldn't be hampered by having to pay upcharges or microtransactions for things that used to be free. And ultimately, as well, the thing that nobody will talk about, and Disney can't put a number to it, is how people feel when they're on their vacation. Disney was never a cheap vacation, but you at least felt like you were getting a lot of value for what you were paying. You had Magical Express, you had Fast Passes, you had the cast members going out of their way to make magical experiences for you. So even though you're spending a lot of money, you're feeling like you're getting a lot for your money still. Now you're spending even more money, getting even less for it. So people go on these vacations, they don't feel good about it, and they don't really want to go back. So I think a lot of this is how people feel when they're done with the vacation. And if they brought back a lot of these perks that were free, and let's be honest, they were never free. They're just included with the admission. However you want to measure that with your accounting on the business end of things, that's whatever. But at the end of the day, if people feel like they're getting a more value, they'll be likely to spend more money, and therefore they will likely come back. So whatever money you might have lost on the front end because you weren't charging for Genie Plus and things, but people felt better about their vacation, guess what? Those people will come back and spend money yet again. So a lot of what Disney's doing, in my opinion, has been short-sighted, and that getting money right now and forfeiting money later. And now they're kind of stuck in this pickle now where this is exactly what's happening. Is the middle class that got priced out isn't going to go back. They can't afford it. They don't think it's worth it. And the rich people that they tried to accommodate to have options, and they may come back, but at the same time, they may go to Europe. They may go on a cruise. There's a lot of options for those people. Disney has everything to play for. If it doesn't find a way of cutting costs, its shared price may remain depressed until Iger is finally replaced. He recently said he is obsessed with finding a successor, and the shortlist reportedly includes D'Amaro, as well as Dana Walden, is from everything that we're hearing. As he is the architect of the theme park pricing model, which is alienating fans, it remains to be seen whether investors would see him as Disney's Prince Charming. It may need to clean house for stockholders to end up happily ever after. I mean, that's a pretty, I would say, a pretty scathing article, and I don't disagree with most of what she's saying here. I've said for a long time when you're talking about the CEO search, I think somebody outside the company would be best. I think if you look like a Michael Eisner type of person, I don't see anybody internally with Disney, on that level. I'm not a big Iger person. I don't think he's been a very good CEO. I think he likes to buy things. I don't think he's ran the parks necessarily well. And I think Diamaro's tenure has been these increased, taking away things that used to be free. And a lot of the attractions coming in are just IPs everywhere. And it's hard to know where the decisions, say it's all in Diamaro, how much of that was Iger or Chapek. It's hard to know, but he is the head of the division. So that's what you have to go off of. So while he has made the division a lot of money, in my opinion, and I think what she's outlining in this article is a lot of it is short-sighted. You've made a lot of money due to a lot of demand that was built up over decades, and you essentially cash that in the short term and left a lot of people feeling just not the best when it comes to Disney or going back. And now they're left in this area where they've got a lot of competition. If we're Universal with Epic Universe, that is happening very soon. On top of the fact that the sentiment for Disney, for many reasons, I think they've done a lot of brand damage on a lot of different fronts, but a lot of people don't feel the best about Disney. So they have a brand image problem. They have a pricing problem, and they're trying desperately to add new things to the parks, which some of it I think could be good. I think the Villains Land has a lot of potential and something that could definitely compete with like Dark Universe over Universal Studios Epic Universe if done correctly. But a lot of it is, in my opinion, them just grasping at straws, trying to just put more stuff into parks that they think people will like. I don't think they necessarily know that people are demanding these things. And a lot of it is just reacting off of what Universal is currently doing. So it's an interesting time for Disney right now. Again, that stock price has not gone up, even though this summer you had Inside Out 2 and you had Deadpool and Wolverine make over $1 billion. It didn't do anything with that stock price. And a lot of it is because the theme parks recently have basically been about 70% of the overall revenue for the company. So while the movies have been struggling, the theme parks have been doing well. And while now it seems the movies aren't as struggling as much, at least these two. But I don't think Disney's out of the woods here. I think they have some stinkers coming up in terms of the Snow White movie. I think there's some shows coming up on Disney Plus, Agatha, and some other ones that I don't think are going to go over very well. So I don't think Disney is back to just hitting home runs all the time again. But they are doing relatively better on the movie side. At that same time, the theme parks start to slide, and that is what's been really driving the company. And I think the investors see that, and they see the weakness there on top of not only the things Disney has done, but the competition side as well. So watching this play out is going to be very interesting. At the same time, Iger is trying to find somebody to replace him, and I imagine how investors feel about whoever they announce replacing them is going to play a major role in that stock price in terms of the future of the company and their really confidence in it. But interesting article from Forbes here lately. Forbes and some other ones, again, have been pretty open about criticizing Disney, and a lot of it has been on the theme park side, which we haven't really seen in the last few years. So it's interesting to see that, a lot of this stuff is now starting to come out. And a lot of it I do agree with. And Caroline Reed has had some other articles that have been pretty critical of some of the decisions that Disney has made here. But either way, that is going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel as we do this coverage here of Disney World, Universal Studios, Epic Universe, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about this article? And does it change anything in the way you think about the Disney parks? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.